Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, we've got Michael McCubs and podcast hero Henry Hill for his second ever appearance on Continental Club. Welcome back, Henry. Today, we are talking about bargain transfers because at Sean15 Mackenzie said, is 25 million euros for Memphis Depay the bargain of the summer? Now, I know we take a lot of flack recently as Memphis Depay, Daily, etc., but we are going to talk about Memphis Depay, but then we have some other fantastic suggestions for bargain transfers. But Henry, we do have to start with the Dutchman because he's apparently close to joining Barcelona.
Yeah, and I think what a great move that could be, both for him and possibly for the club as well. So obviously, this isn't technically a done deal, but it is becoming quite clear that Barcelona view him as the ideal substitute for Lautaro Martinez, who's going to be staying in Inter Milan at least for another season. So yeah, I mean, Ronald Koeman, he's the new boss at Barca, and he knows him very well. The 26-year-old plays under him for the national team, and he's done brilliantly there as well. So yeah, I mean, look, Fabrizio Romano tweeted on Wednesday that personal terms have been agreed. So that's normally a really positive step towards this becoming, an actuality, and it's just the final fee that needs to be agreed between the two clubs. I mean, the thing that's worrying about this from like Lyon's perspective is that this is another one of their big stars that potentially looks like he could be going on the cheap, because it would be about a 30 million euro fee on the basis that he's only got 1 year of his contract to run, I believe, and he is probably ready for a step up away from the club, especially when you consider this season Lyon didn't, in 1920, due to the league being postponed, they ended up finishing outside the European football places, which is probably not where he wants to be, especially with the Euros coming up. So yeah, they've already lost Martin Terrier to Rennes for about £10.8 million, although he didn't have a very good season in 1920 at all. And obviously they lost Fekir the season before for just 18 million when he was linked with Liverpool for closer to 60 million at one point. They have got a big fee for Ndombele to Tottenham in the past, so it's not all doom and gloom. But I mean, why do Barcelona want him? Simply, he has been so good since he's joined Lyon from Manchester United. He's got 75 goal contributions and 101 league games, which is that's frankly nuts. We're talking sort of the level of the very best players in Liga and in Europe at this point. And he's proven his worth in the Champions League as well, with 11 goal contributions in his last 16 games. There's a big reason, I think, them getting to the semi-finals coincided with him coming back from injury, and I think that's a big telltale sign. In 1920, he really was looking like one of the biggest stars in Europe. In 21 games, he scored 15 goals and registered 2 assists. Unfortunately, injury cut off his season. I mean, that's really what hindered Lyon in lots of ways, is the injuries that they sustained in their squads. But yeah, he had an average goal contribution every 95 minutes, which is ridiculous once again. And if you are wondering how good, whether or not, coming back from injury, if he's strong again, this season he's hit the ground running. When he scored a hat-trick against Dijon, a 70-minute hat-trick as well. He also took 6 shots and completed 4 chances and completed 2 dribbles too. So that shows you the kind of level that he's operating right now. But if we just have another look at his 1920 stats, it was 4.2 shots, 2.2 key passes and 2.3 dribbles, which is silly really. 0.64 expected goals and assists per 90, which was down from the year before, but Lyon were struggling a little bit in that department. But yeah, I think 30 million euros for someone of his ability. And I do think he's ready, because if you look at the way that he's been forming for the national side, he is looking like the leader, which I think they really need within that side. Especially if Messi's sort of disgruntled at the moment and stuff like that, they do need a player to come in there and really sort of push on the team from almost a leadership perspective as well. He's not one of these kind of young, proven stars. I mean, he's not old either, let's just remember, he's only 26, but he would come with that gravitas and that belief of being a big star. He's a big name, within social media and everything, so he's got that kind of aura about him, and I do think that he could be that kind of player to push them on. And if only Mbappe and Neymar got more than his 1.7 shots on target and averaged 0.5 goal creations actions per 90 minutes, if they were the only players doing better than him in Liga in last season, it shows you the kind of level he'll be bringing as well. So yeah, I think for me personally, 30 million euros is an unbelievable price to go in for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a really exciting signing. I think it's the right age bracket. He's coming into what should be his peak years, or continuing his peak years, either way. And suddenly, if Suarez leaves, a front three of Griezmann playing centrally, which I think they have to do really. They've got to push Griezmann centrally in order to make any use of him and get the best out of him and try and get any comeback almost on that 120 million euros they spent on him. And then you put Messi on the right and Depay on the left. with Ansu Fati coming in on occasions, Trincao, perhaps Coutinho, and suddenly actually Barcelona's front line looks pretty strong. Obviously they've still got work to do, I think, in full-back areas. They need another box-to-box midfielder, as we've talked about. They could probably do with another centre-back. So it's certainly not all rosy, but I think Depay would be a step in the right direction. But McCubs, let's park Depay for now, because there's another player in Italy, in Donnarumma, who could be available, maybe not necessarily this summer, but very soon.
Yeah, Donnarumma's situation, I'd say, is obviously a bit different to Depay. I don't necessarily see him leaving AC Milan in this window unless something goes seriously wrong and they suddenly try and offload him. Either way, I'm not sure who would come in for him. I don't feel like there's really a club out there right now who are like in desperate need of a goalkeeper. Obviously Chelsea were, but it looks like Eduard Mendy's gonna go there. I think Donnarumma may well have been a perfect option for them, but I think that ship's probably sailed. But obviously he's in these talks with AC Milan at the moment over a new deal. His current contract runs out next summer. He's asking for pretty inflated wages, obviously considering what he's on at the moment. He wants 10 million euros a year. He's currently on 5.4 million euros. I think what his demands work out to something like 200,000 euros per week. So pretty hefty stuff, and obviously this isn't anything new in terms of the kind of demands that Donnarumma has kind of made to AC Milan in the past, but equally he is a very important player for them, has been for a number of years now despite his relative youth. I guess the main problem is that AC Milan don't necessarily have the money to be able to make that happen at the moment, or at least they've been struggling a little bit, haven't they, over the last year or so, and have definitely made an effort to kind of cut back their spending in a lot of areas. Having said that, Ibrahimovic has signed a deal worth 5.95 million euros to keep him there until he's 40. So when you think about where Milan's priorities lie, it's a bit odd that they've made that decision with Ibrahimovic. I know he's had a great impact since coming back, but to spend that much on a player who really does only have 2 years left, and it's questionable how much of an influence he can have across that time, especially when you've got so many good young players coming through. It seems strange that they've prioritised that over Donnarumma. Obviously, Donnarumma's made over 200 appearances for the club since breaking into the first team as a 16-year-old. Arguably been their most consistent player during the last few years. He's only missed 4 league games in the last 4 years, which is just staggering, isn't it? For a player of his age, already has the kind of experience of goalkeepers in their late 20s. Where his career, the ceiling really doesn't, the sky's the limit for him essentially in terms of his development. I think that's, in and of itself, I think that's a reason for Milan to essentially give him what he wants, because this is a keeper who will break the record for a goalkeeper transfer without a doubt. He could be the first 100 million euro keeper for all we know, depending on where the transfer market goes over the next couple of years. Whatever happens, Milan are probably going to see a return on their investment. But from his standpoint as well, I think it would be worth him staying another year. AC Milan are obviously on the up, probably never been in as good a position as they have been right now in the last few years. He was in great form towards the end of last season as well. I think Milan conceded fewer goals than any team bar Inter and Fiorentina in the second half of the season, and obviously went unbeaten, didn't they, after the restart as well. I think now's, in some ways, now's never been a better time for him to be in the shop window. And if PSG can tie him down to that new contract, then they can get a decent fee for him next summer. If he doesn't tie down to a new contract, then he's free next summer, isn't he? And then that will be a huge loss for Milan. Like I was saying, that's them potentially missing out on 70 to 100 million euros for him. And I was saying earlier that that there aren't many teams who are looking at a goalkeeper, I completely forgot that PSG are the side that have been kind of most strongly linked with him. So yeah, I mean, unless I don't know, I feel like this. Yeah, like you were saying, Dougs, I feel like this is probably not going to happen in the next month, barring a disaster from AC Milan. But that does seem like the likely destination, doesn't it? PSG have been kind of in need of a long-term solution at goalkeeper for the last few years, haven't they?
Absolutely. I think Keylor Navas is now approaching his mid-30s. They've signed Sergio Rico, ex-Fulham, of course, Henry, from Sevilla permanently this summer as well. But I think Areola's being linked with a number of Premier League clubs, actually, so he looks like he's on his way. But yeah, I agree with you. This looks like it's going to happen next year, but what an opportunity for Milan with Donnarumma, if they've only got him for another year, to really, compete for the top four, hopefully, compete, in the latter stages of the Coppa Italia as well, and really try and push him to stay. It could be really interesting. But the final bargain transfer we wanted to talk about, in depth at least, is Thiago. It's the saga that keeps on rolling on, but it's impossible to see him as anything other than a complete bargain. In terms of where the transfer's at, the latest that we've got before filming this is that Fabrizio Romano tweeted that he's not taking part in any of the medicals at Bayern's training centre this week. I imagine that's coronavirus related. Bayern are still insisting that Liverpool or any potential suitors paid 30 million euros. But Liverpool's move probably hinges on whether Wijnaldum goes to Barcelona, who Koeman apparently wants over Thiago, which is slightly baffling, to be honest. According to Fabrizio, Chelsea haven't made contact. Man United talked to his agent but haven't made an official bid or entered talks with Bayern Munich. So it really does feel like it's Liverpool or nothing. And Thiago made it very clear that when he wasn't set to renew that contract, which expires next year, that Liverpool was his target and that's where he wants to go. In terms of would he be worth it? Absolutely. I mean, he turned 29 in April, but he's still very much at the top of his game. He's got this reputation for being quite injury plagued, I would say, or injury ridden, I should say. But he's played at least 40 games in 4 of the last 5 seasons. He missed 9 games in 19-20 with injury, but when he was fit, he was pretty much ever present in the side. Played 34 League and Champions League games, and his underlying numbers suggest a player still very much at the top of his game. 3 goals and 2 assists, which isn't his best return in a season. I think he got close to 10 assists once in the Bundesliga a couple of years ago. So that's slightly gone down as he's been shifted into a deeper role. But still, really solid defensive contribution. 4.6 tackles and interceptions, 0.9 shots, 1 key pass, and a crazy 3.6 dribbles per 90. I think that was the best record for a central midfielder in Europe. That's close to, I think, Kovacic and Jeffrey Adelaide were close there as well. But that's really what separates Thiago apart. It's his ability to break the press in central midfield, turn quickly either way, and then shoot these lovely diagonal balls, which everyone loves to see, all around the team. And he'd be a massive step up, I think, in Wijnaldum. I think Wijnaldum's unfairly criticised, particularly on this channel, by one person in particular, but actually he's a very solid Premier League performer. He's been a crucial part of Liverpool becoming one of the better sides and one of the best sides, really, in Premier League history over the last couple of years. But his underlying numbers never look particularly good. But what he is very good, he's very good at retaining the ball, and he's a very good presser as well. But actually, if you look into it, Thiago completes just as many pressures per 90, which is 15, and actually wins the ball back 36% of the time he presses compared to 31% for Wijnaldum. So that would be the main concern probably for Liverpool fans, is whether he'll be able to keep up with Liverpool's sort of midfield style. But actually, on those underlying numbers at least, it seems like he'll be more than able to do that. All in all, I think this is a complete win for Liverpool. I think it would be the signing of the summer. I think it would be one of the deals of the last 10 years. And I can't fathom why they haven't just got this done. I think he would be an awesome addition to this Liverpool midfield. I can hear some noises coming from one of you. Are you guys in agreement with that?
Deal of the last 10 years is a big claim. Just because of his age, I think. But yeah, 30 million euros for what? Like, I mean, third best midfielder in the world, maybe. He's in the top 5. He's easily in the top 5. He's such an. I mean, he's an upgrade on anyone in that Liverpool midfield, to be honest. Maybe aside from Fabinho, I know Henderson's had an amazing year, and Liverpool fans will probably be getting at me in the comments for that. But he is just he just takes that midfield to a whole new level, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Henry, are you in agreement with that? Are you as baffled as me as why Liverpool haven't got this done?
I am. I was on Transfer Talk this week and I was looking on Twitter, and there are a lot of Liverpool fans just so confused why this hasn't gone through. And more so also that Harry Wilson and Rhian Brewster, they've made them both available for £20 million each, and they're refusing to budge on that price either. Apparently Aston Villa and I think Sheffield United have both seen offers about 13 million for Harry Wilson rejected and stuff like that. And they were saying only Liverpool could value their youngsters at 20 million each, and then refuse to pay 30 million euros for, as we said, one of the best midfielders in the world. And I think they make put a lot of emphasis on him being 29. 29's not like horrendously old in the world of football, if that makes sense. If you look at what Thiago does, the way he operates in the midfield, he could easily get stuck in there for 3-4 years. I mean, just look at James Milner. I mean, obviously he's sort of presented as the consummate professional and stuff like that, and the way that he looks after himself.
And a bit of a genetic freak, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But I think, it's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, Jurgen Klopp came out today and sort of made a dig at the bigger clubs, saying that Liverpool don't have the kind of budgets and they're not run by oligarchs or nations and stuff like that. But I'm not buying for a second that they don't have 30 million tucked away, which they could just spend on this, because like we said before, it's a no-brainer. Absolutely,
and if you cut your price to 13 million for Harry Wilson, sell Gini for 15, then you only need 2 million to get Thiago. Surely it's got to be done. Absolutely mental. But Liverpool, as you say, do drive a very hard bargain, as we've seen with Dominic Solanke and Danny Ward over the last few years. They always get very good deals. Guys, we briefly want to touch on some more niche shouts. Obviously, Donnarumma, Depay, Thiago, big names. But McCubs, one name in Austria is Patson Daka, who has, we probably haven't watched that much of him firsthand at least, but his statistics are mind-blowing, really.
Yeah, I mean, he's another gem from Salzburg, isn't he? They just keep on producing them. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, he's 21-year-old Zambian striker, shot to prominence, kind of after Erling Haaland left, really. Made 38 appearances for Salzburg over the previous two seasons before, and scored 7 goals. Also spent 2 years on loan at their feeder club, FC Liefering. But last season he just exploded. 27 goals in 45 games. That included 24 and 31 league games. So really, really prolific in the Austrian Bundesliga. And Salzburg kind of saw what was coming, I guess. They extended his contract until 2024 in December 2019, obviously when Haaland was pretty much odds on to go. Just looks like, at the moment, a really kind of mature, all-round centre-forward. He can drop deep, links up play, but also, incredible in the box, as we've seen with his scoring record. Decent creative numbers as well. Got 6 assists last season, so that kind of worked out to around 30 goal contributions in 30 games. Also played in the Champions League as well, and looked pretty impressive in the group stages as well. Obviously, the focus really wasn't on him at that point. But from 2 starts and 2 sub appearances, he was taking over 4 shots a game and creating nearly 2 chances a match. Obviously, that's in limited minutes, and I guess those are per 90 stats as well, so it may be a little bit kind of skewed, but that's a pretty good sign in what was a pretty tough Champions League group as well. Obviously had Liverpool and Napoli in there, didn't they? So he could be a really good pickup. Whether he'll go this summer, I'm not really sure. I feel like his name would have already kind of come up a little bit more. I feel like there would probably be more negotiations at hand by this point. But he's valued at £18 million. I think that would probably rise to over 20 million or even to 30 million if Salzburg know what they're doing. But obviously, they are also a club that have been, I guess, known for letting players go for relatively little as well. Just look at what happened with Haaland with Borussia Dortmund and the number of players who they've sold in the past as well. Obviously, Szoboszlai is another player who a lot of clubs are going for at Salzburg as well. So I think there's an opportunity for Salzburg to be a bit more, drive a bit of a harder bargain with these players, just because they really do now have a reputation, for bringing through some of the best talent in Europe. I know that's been the case for a while now, but they're really not a secret anymore. Liverpool have actually been linked with Patson Daka. I think they're favourites to sign him apparently. So that could be a really interesting shout, and in some ways the kind of profile of player that Liverpool should probably be looking at least if they are serious about Ryan Brewster going. I feel like there's still kind of holding out for Ryan Brewster coming through, but at the moment he's just not getting the minutes, is he? So yeah, Patson Daka, I think he's going to be making headlines for the next year in the transfer news world, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He'd be great at Liverpool, but also I think Spurs should have a proper look at him
True.
as well. I still can't get my head around the fact they haven't got a permanent out-and-out 9 as a Harry Kane replacement. That will come back to bite them unless they solve it in the next couple of months. Next couple of weeks, I should say. It finishes on the 5th of October, of course. I've got some other niche shouts for you. Otavio, 25-year-old Porto midfielder, only got 1 year remaining on his current deal. I haven't watched him play extensively. I've only watched YouTube highlights of him, but he looked very exciting. His stats come up a lot, so Porto fans, we want to hear from you about what you guys make of him. He only became a regular the year before last. Last year, though, 2 goals, 9 assists, looked very good playing in central midfield or as a number 10. Last year as well, big defensive output, 4 tackles and interceptions, 1.1 shots, 1.9 key passes, and 2.3 dribbles with a 69% completion rate. So that's really promising. As I said, can play as a central midfielder or as a number 10. Porto fans, I want to hear more about him in the comments below. Henry, similarly, well, actually playing in a deeper role is Djibril Sow at Eintracht Frankfurt. Do you think he could be worth a look at, maybe?
Yeah, Djibril Sow, he's someone that we've been talking about for a while now. He's 23 years old. He's probably better known than Otavio in some regards. He's got 6 caps for the Swiss international team, and he does have 1 year of a top 5 league under his belt, having joined Frankfurt from Young Boys of Bern last June. And at Bern they went on to win I think their first league title in a number of years, so that kind of shows the impact he had there, which is why he earned his big move. But in 1920, 29 Bundesliga appearances, 18 of those were starts. He got 1 goal and 3 assists. As a defensive-minded midfielder, it must be said, because that's where his strengths really lie. If you look at his tackling numbers, it's 4.5 tackles and interceptions, and then even beyond that, it was 1.1 shots and 1.3 key passes. So it really does show sort of he's a sort of tough tackling. He's in there. He's also got an 83% passing accuracy too, so he knows what he's doing when he's on the ball. He doesn't produce the most amount of dribbles. Don't expect to see him sort of bursting through. He's more the kind of guy who'll receive the ball, maybe play it on. He averages about 29 passes a game. But yeah, I think with a market value of 8.5 million, I think if you're looking for sort of like an enforcer in the back, maybe like a Southampton who are looking for a cheap replacement for Højbjerg or something like that, I think that's the kind of industry. That's the kind of team that would be going for a player like Djibril Sow. But yeah, he's good. 23 as well. He can only get better too. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting shout actually.
Absolutely, and I think it must have been at Young Boys, working under Adi Hutter, I think, who must have then taken him to Frankfurt as well. So they've got a little bit of history together. The final suggestion, even nicher than Otavio, is Abdu Harawi. Only found him when looking at stats yesterday, but watched a bit of him on YouTube this morning. I think he might be more of a Football Manager player. I mean, you guys get very excited when we come up with a niche suggestion, but he's a 22-year-old Dutch under-21 international, plays for Sparta Rotterdam. He's actually a traditional right midfielder in a sort of 4-4-2. Phenomenal crosser of a ball. 4 goals and 8 assists last year for a team that finished 11th in the Eredivisie. Big defensive output, 4.1 tackles and interceptions, 2.1 shots, 1.2 key passes, and 2.6 dribbles. Really pretty impressive. His passing accuracy is only about just above 70%, but that's because he crosses the ball so much. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Abdu Harawi, want to hear more about him as well, Sparta Rotterdam fans, in the comments. And guys, that's all we've got time for on our first section. Let's move on to Big Match Preview. Big Match Preview is back, people. Yes, La Liga returns this week, but with no Barcelona, Real and Atleti. We are instead talking about the big match in Ligue 1, Le Classique, PSG versus Marseille. PSG are actually in action tonight, so we film this on a Thursday. They play Lens tonight, but this weekend face a much sterner test. They've got Marseille, who finished second, 12 points behind them last year in that curtailed year. But McCubs, PSG have been decimated by coronavirus.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty worrying at the moment for PSG, at least in terms of the players they're missing. So yeah, they're currently without 7 first-team players, all tested positive for coronavirus. That includes Neymar, Di Maria and Mbappe. Mbappe was the latest to pick it up while on international duty. And sporting director Leonardo apparently was furious to only learn about his positive test from the press conference. From the press rather than the French Football Federation. So a little bit of tension there, I guess, but I'm sure he'll get over it. L'Équipe claimed that Neymar got the virus after going on an end-of-season trip to Ibiza. So yeah, I guess fans will be disappointed about that.
It's not the only thing you can pick up in Ibiza, yeah.
Exactly. Love it, Diggs.
You know,
right down there. But yeah, like we said, Di Maria as well, Paredes as well, Icardi, Marquinhos, and Keylor Navas. So I mean, it's not just their forward line; it's like key players in every single position. I mean, their two best defensive midfielders in Marquinhos and Paredes. The other goal scorer, aside from Neymar and Mbappe, I guess their other prime goal scorer in Icardi. So, yeah, I mean, this could be a pretty tough game for them. Obviously, they've released Cavani and Choupo-Moting as well. So their options up front have gone from one of the best in Europe to almost nothing. They might have to start a front two. Genuinely might have to start a front two of Pablo Sarabia and Julian Draxler. Obviously, Julian Draxler's also, his name's obviously also been in the news this week. Apparently, Leeds United are after him. Don't know how much substance there is to that, but that would actually be a pretty exciting move, I think, for both parties. But yeah, aside from their kind of coronavirus woes, it's been quite a quiet summer so far for PSG. Obviously, they only ended the campaign on the 23rd of August. That's like less than 3 weeks ago still. I mean, the Champions League final for me feels like an age ago, but it wasn't really that long ago. So they haven't really had a lot of time to think about who they're recruiting. I don't know if recruitment was that big a priority for them this summer anyway. I think they did a lot of decent work last year, and getting someone like Cavani off the books, I think was always kind of something they were going to do. Choupo-Moting as well, I guess. Obviously, Thiago Silva's joined Chelsea as well. Kouassi's gone to Bayern Munich. Meunier's gone to Dortmund. So they've kind of got rid of a lot of dead wood. I mean, I wouldn't say that Cavani and Thiago Silva were necessarily dead wood, but in terms of making way for the kind of next generation at the Parc des Princes, Icardi, that was kind of on the cards already, wasn't it? That was done very, very early in the summer. And obviously Sergio Rico came in as well, played a little bit of a part in that Champions League run. And apparently Florenzi's come in from Roma today. So that, in theory, should mean that actually this pursuit of Hector Bellerin is now off. Obviously, I guess that's price-wise probably suits PSG a little bit more. However, Florenzi's quite a bit older than Bellerin, isn't he? So I don't know how much of a long-term solution he is for them at right back. Maybe just as a squad player for now, we'll see. But yeah, so I think this will be an interesting season for PSG. I don't see any huge signings coming in between now and the 5th of October, to be honest. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think Thomas Tuchel now has a real standing at the club. I think getting them to that Champions League final was such an important thing. And I guess the expectations are just going to be higher this year. I think they're going to really want to go for it. But as we saw, I think squad-wise, they're probably all right. But it is pretty worrying, this coronavirus stuff. I think this. I think this is something that could plague a few teams in the early stages of the season. Obviously, the end of the summer. Like with a lot of people, Europe has generally been a little bit more open, and especially with footballers, they've kind of deserved a bit of a break after what was a pretty difficult season. So whether that's been going on holiday or going on international duty, which again maybe wasn't the best time in terms of kind of the spikes that we've seen, that could be a little bit of a theme going into the next few weeks. But I think in terms of that, I think PSG have got a real game on their hands. They're going to have to field a real makeshift team. Very little defensive cover in front of the back four. Thiago Silva's not there anymore, so that back four is probably a little bit weaker at the moment. Going forward, they just don't have really any options at all.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. I imagine in the next month or so they'll probably try and add a bit of frontline depth, maybe with a few additions. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think it will be a relatively quiet window, but it does kind of feel like it's now or never really for them in the Champions League. I think Di Maria and Bernat only have 1 year remaining next summer, and Neymar and Mbappe only have 2 years remaining on their contracts. So they've really got to take that step forward. But yeah, massive improvement last year from Tuchel's side. I think they were averaging close to 3 goals a game across the entire season, and ran Bayern Munich actually surprisingly close in that final. But Henry, let's talk about Marseille, because your man Andre Villas-Boas, who I know you're a big fan of, you've even named your fantasy football team after him, I believe. Is made great strides last year.
No, that's right. Listen, I do love Andre Villas-Boas. So he's a good-looking guy.
What was your name again on fantasy football? Henry Henri Villas-Boas or something?
It's just Henry Villas-Boas. I think it was Henry Villas-Boas, but I mean, it's one of these jokes that stuck maybe too long. I was embarrassed to share that with all of my Football Daily colleagues. But anyway, enough about one of the best managers in world football right now. Marseille. So Marseille, this could be a really interesting game for them. I think the only thing that could play in PSG's favour is Marseille aren't the most attacking unit. I mean, they've only played one game this year as well. They beat Brest 3-2 away from home. And that game was their first in almost 6 months, in 177 days. So yeah, they're not exactly in practice. And they got really lucky in that game. Brest had 19 shots. Marseille only took 7. And XG had at 2.3 to 1.3 in Brest's favour. I mean, they only finished 14th in Ligue 1 last season too. Luckily, Marseille, they've got Florian Thauvin, who's he's back from injury, which is really important for them. And he scored against Brest, as well as Khaled Takar. He got a double as well. So yeah, they haven't played much football recently. But if we go back to 1920, that was really a great year for them. They finished second, which is their best finish since 2012-13. And this was AVB's first season in charge, back from racing around the deserts of Dakar. So yeah, they finished just with 5 points fewer than in 18-19, despite playing 10 fewer league games. It really shows. And the key to their success has been he's knuckled down their defence and he's made them a lot more rigid, because their goals per game numbers went from 1.6 in 18-19 to 1.5, which isn't a major fall, but when you consider they lost their best player as well, and Lucas Campos, who they sold to Sevilla at the start of the season. But their defence went from 1 goal against. It went to 1 goal against from 1.4 the season before. So that really shows how he's just tightened them up. And they're not the most flashy team, I'll be honest. They're quite handy. They've got Morgan Sanson, who's brilliant in the midfield. He's really their star asset. So they've got a really solid unit as a team. And that's really what's held them through. But yeah, don't expect them to go and blitz PSG. But this might be the moment. If ever there was a time for them to go for it, this might be the game. But yeah, I mean, last season they didn't do amazingly well in the cup competitions. A quarter-final exit to Lyon in the Coupe de France, and around a 32 exit to Monaco in the Coupe de la Ligue. But really, when you consider this is the first time they're back in the Champions League for 7 years, I think they're more than happy with that result. I'm sure they were more than happy to curtail the season when they could. But if you consider that they had qualified for the Champions League, you'd have thought that extra money would have come in, but they've had a bit of a disappointing window so far. I don't think they've really kicked on and sort of improved the team that made them the way they would like to. They have bought in Alvaro Gonzalez from Villarreal for 3.6 million. I don't know too much about him, but he was on loan at Marseille last season, played 20 games, 2 tackles and interceptions with a 77% tackle success rate, which is pretty strong. And yeah, he made about 44 passes per game, so he was involved. So he's a decent player. Clearly just shoring up themselves at the back. They've also brought in Leonardo Balerdi from Borussia Dortmund. He's a 21-year-old centre-back. So he's joined alone with a €15 million option to buy. So that'll be interesting to see how that progresses. And then, yeah, I wrote about this week as well. He's brought in Yuto Nagatomo from Galatasaray in Turkey. That's where he was owned. He's 33 years old. He is pretty past it now. He wasn't really appearing that much for Gala anyway. So I'm quite surprised that that's what they've gone for. He does have something like 120 caps for Japan, so I can understand why, for experience, they've gone for it. But in terms of actual like pressing on and improving the team, I don't think it's a great improvement. But they haven't sold anyone yet so far, which is important. Normally, someone will come in for some of their best players. But unlike Lyon, how we were discussing earlier, or Lille, I think they've managed to hold on to their main stars so far. So yeah, I mean, it'd be a really interesting season for Marseille. I'm quite excited to see how they perform. If AVB can back it up again. I feel like he's always been a manager which has sort of had a good bounce at the start, then maybe faded a little bit. But this is a massive opportunity for him to really show just how good he is, because it took him a long time to get a job once he left Zenit St. Petersburg. This is it's a big game for AVB. It's a big game for Marseille, and their crowds love nothing more than a victory over PSG. There was that video of them celebrating when PSG lost the Champions League final, which was fantastic. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes.
Absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity for AVB to restore his reputation as well with them back in Europe, as you say. Could be absolutely thrilling. But Marseille have the weight of history against them, to say the least. They haven't won any of their last 20 meetings dating back to November 2011. In that time, PSG have won 17 and there's been just 3 draws. And the last meeting, PSG won 4-0 with a brace from Mauro Icardi and Mbappe. But of course, neither will be playing due to coronavirus. For Marseille, they've got a pretty much clean bill of health. Bar Steve Mandanda, who also has COVID-19. I don't know what was going on in the French camp, but they seem to all have it. And so that means Johan Pele will be deputising in goal. Guys, I always ask for a quick score prediction, even. McCubs, what are you going to say?
I might say 2-0 Marseille.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it.
Ooh.
Okay.
It's just
Henry,
so...
what do you reckon?
yeah, they've got so many players missing.
Boring. I think it'd be a 1-1 or 0-0. Maybe even 0-0. I think 1-1 or 0-0, in all honesty.
Henry, second time on Continental Club and you come here with a 0-0. That's
All right.
dreadful.
All right. Well, let's say 2-1. Obviously, I'm supporting Marseille in this one. I'd like to see them win 2-1.
Wow.
But yeah, I think it could be a bit of a... Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think there's going to be goals in this. I think Dario Benedetto will back himself against the PSG weakened defence. I'm going to go with 2-1 Marseille. Why
Wow.
not? Why not?
All backing Marseille, I love it.
All backing Marseille. Vive l'homme. Anyway, let's move on to our quickfire question. Our quickfire question comes in from Swagato Saka 99. Welcome back to the fold, Swagato. He is sending in questions with a vengeance at the moment. And one of his 20 or so this week was, what is your favourite derby? Henry, what's your favourite derby? Is it the West London derby, the Fulham-Chelsea game?
I don't think that's ever existed, really, as a derby. I'm willing to accept it's not very
Do you
good.
not remember that pitch invasion in like 2005 or something? I remember that quite clearly.
That sounds far too raucous for a Dirt Craven Cottage. I don't know what you're
I think
about.
it might have been the craziest day ever seen at Craven Cottage, to be honest.
Oh dear. Well, I'll tell you where it is crazy. That's in Istanbul. I love the kind of Turkish derbies. I think like Gala versus Fenerbahce, or even this growing rival with Istanbul, Başakşehir. Sorry, however you say that. I think that's really exciting. That's where real passion comes into it. I don't think it has to be about like the best teams playing each other. I think it can just be like the pure excitement and will to win. And I don't think it gets much bigger than in Istanbul.
Absolutely. Turkish football just kind of scares me, if I'm totally honest. Having seen videos of it. Same with a lot of Serbian football as well. Red Star Belgrade, Partizan, that derby scares me as well. I mean, McCubs, what are you going for in this?
Yeah, Istanbul's a really good shout, actually. In a similar kind of vein, I think just because of the time when we all kind of grew up, I think the Milan derby really sticks out to me. I know El Clasico, equally, throughout the last 20 years has been massive. But in terms of I don't think I've seen as much iconic imagery to come out of any derby more than the Milan Inter derby. I think in the early 2000s in particular, it was just every single game, the pitch would be just full up with flares, wouldn't it? They'd always have to stop it. I think there was one particular game where Dida got absolutely kind of bombarded with them, and it was pretty bad. But from what came out of that was some just absolutely iconic photo. I think there's the one of Rui Costa and Materazzi.
I was just about to say that photo is
so in
epic.
terms of that, just in terms of growing up and seeing those derbies, and I don't know, that really kind of that was my first kind of real kind of, I guess, exposure to what a kind of a rivalry can be and how passionate it can really get in the stadium.
Absolutely. I'm going a bit closer to home. I love the Tyne-Wear derby. We always win, and it's great, to be honest. I really miss it, and it'll be probably a good few years till we have one again. We had one with Newcastle's under 21s last year, which was pretty embarrassing, but we beat them, as we always do. And hopefully we'll get that 6 points per season back in 2025, 26. We'll see though. Anyway, guys, that's all we've got time for Continental Club for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you guys thought about our bargain transfer shout in the comments down below, and any of your suggestions, get them in there as well. Henry, what should the good people go and do now?
Yeah, keep checking out our XIs and top 10s. I think you're going to see us transitioning from transfers to looking ahead for the season and stuff like that. So if you've got any hunches about the season, if you've got people in your fantasy teams who you're not too sure about, check out our top 10s and our XIs, because we'll probably give you some good hints about who you should be going for.
Absolutely. McCubs, anything from you?
Obviously, go and subscribe to the podcast channel if you haven't done so already.
Yes.
Yeah, we're putting out a lot of stuff on that, and I'm trying to think on Eurofootball Daily. Yeah, go and check out the scout reports. I always say it, but there's been a lot of good scout reports recently, so go and check those out.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.